Hey guys, this is MOPAR Man 1978. Thought I'd do a short video on converting your MOPAR to HEI Ignition. And this is probably the simplest setup right here. The GM 4-prong ICM module, ignition control module. As you can see, mine is down here on the fender well of my pickup. I made this heat sink plate out of aluminum diamond plating I bought from Menards. I'm not getting any kickback from Menards or anything, but I mean, you can get it from Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever. All you gotta do is, you can use the flat side, but I thought the diamond side looked pretty cool. All I did was you have to break these little tabs that's on the bottom of the plastic on the control module off so it sits flat. And all I did is I sat mine down, traced around it with a real fine tip Sharpie marker when I had this plate off of the fender well. And then when I traced around it, I also made sure to mark where the machine thread screws go into. And then I took that off, took a grinder, ground off the diamonds that were in the area where the module would sit, so it sits flat. And I noticed in a lot of the videos that people do on the HEI conversion with MOPARs or whatever it may be, they're always using the dielectric grease that comes in the box in the little packet. That does nothing except to keep metal or electrical connections from rusting or corroding. It doesn't transfer any of the heat or anything. If you look on the bottom of this control module, you got a flat plate. What happens is when you start your ignition up, this little module starts to take on a lot of heat from 12 volts. Anyway, this whole plate starts to heat up. Well, what happens if the heat gets too hot on the module? It burns the module out. So, to keep that from happening, you can go and buy this stuff on eBay. You can buy it in bulk, whatever you want to do. I didn't want to have to wait, and I buy 2 packs at a time to keep one in the glove box in case my control, and an extra control module in case it ever goes out, which it's a rarity, unlike points. And I do have points in my Dart. I'm not darts phobia or anything, or I mean like a points phobia or anything like that. But I've also had to carry an extra condenser, an extra set of points, whatnot, in my car when I was driving it, because my car was a daily driver. You know, from my house to my job was 14.5 miles one way. So imagine that 2 times a day, times however many days of work I would do, plus all the odds and ends of running back and forth to town to get groceries or go out of town to visit people on vacation or whatever it may be. And eventually the points would burn up or go out on you, leave you stranded. Anyway, now a lot of people brag about how, oh, well, I've never had that problem with my points. It's like, well, a lot of times I've noticed a lot of the vehicles sit in storage, and they get the vehicle out once in a while and take it out for a, you know, an evening cruise or go to a car show, or they might not fire it up for a full week or something like that, or 2 or 3 days will go by. Anyway, when you're putting a lot of wear and tear on the vehicle when it's a daily driver going to and from work, it does take its toll on the points. And since a lot of this electronic stuff is made over in China anymore, it doesn't seem to last for long. So the other weak point of the points is the ballast resistor. I got tired of dealing with the ballast resistor, and those would also go out too. So I'd also keep an extra one of those in the glove box. But I converted all my already electronic ignition. I kept the MOPAR Electronic Ignition distributor here. All I did was I run heavy duty, you can see it right here, braided cable. I didn't, well, not braided, twisted cable all the way down. You gotta make sure you keep this away from your spark plug wires, and you run it down over here, up to and down to this side of the ignition control module. A lot of people already know about all this setup. I'm just teaching the newbies on how to set this up. And then you got your this side, which is your letter B, goes to your positive side of your coil. This side goes to the negative side of your coil. And then what you're going to need to do is run a 12-volt source off. Make sure it's heavy gauge wire over to a 15-amp fuse, and then up to I went and bought a 40-amp relay. Connected that in here and off. You have to have your ignition wire that only does like 7 to 8 point something volts when you turn the key, especially even in the run position. Come back over here, back to the relay, and then you got your trigger wire, and then it goes back down over to your coil. Like I said, make sure you use heavy gauge wire, because if not, all these wires will start to warm up on you, because it's resistance, and you want as less resistance as possible. So, but anyway, and then I run this little 300 and some ohms little miniature MSD SS blaster coil. You can use the CHEVY HEI coil, or if you can find the old style canister coil that puts out a certain amount of ohms within 300 and some. Like I think there's some for like certain Chevys, or certain, like one guy used one from off of a old 60s or 70s BMW or something. I don't know. I didn't really pay too much. I just wanted to make my setup as simple as possible. But anyway, you want to use this stuff. I bought this stuff from Best Buy. It's over in their electronic section and it's a gray paste. It's a heat sink compound. This helps draw all the heat away from the control module. And this is like 10, 11 bucks at Best Buy. Like I said, you can get anywhere online. You can even go online and buy the same stuff with like 4 or 5 at a time for like a certain price. But Best Buy was just a few miles down the road in Branson, so I'd say to get that, put that on there. And what I did is, on my heatsink plate, I welded grade 8 bolts to the fender well, put a grade 8 bolt behind it, then put the spacer plate on there, the heatsink plate I should say, and then a grade 8 bolt. Tighten it down, make sure you have a good ground. I have one going from here to the frame, here to the battery itself. I try to solder most of my wires as much as possible, because even the crimped ones, after the air hits the exposed wires on the connector crimp connectors I should say, after a while they do oxidize, and they can cause not a very good contact. So you can either use dielectric grease or just solder them. I prefer to solder them because this is easier to do. It may take a little bit longer, but anyway, I leave a gap going from clear down here in the bottom up to the top. This plate, I made it bigger than most people would make it. I've seen them half the size or just a little bit bigger than the module. I've seen them mounted up on the engine. I've seen them mounted up on the distributor itself. I've seen them mounted up on the firewall itself. Oh, that's great, but the problem is you got all the hot air rushing back towards the engine. You got all the heat coming off the engine. And what happens there? All the heat collects on that module. And yeah, it'll run for quite a while. You get several miles out of it, but the problem is after a while the heat takes its toll on the module, like I said before in the beginning of the video. And then if you have it on your distributor or on the firewall, all that heat gets pushed back along the firewall and then down towards the ground because of the airflow. Anyway, since I've had this over here, I think I've only had to change this out once, and that was because I bought a cheap ignition control module and it went out on me, so I went and bought a better quality one. and this thing's been on here for 2 years minimum. And what it does is I gave it enough space for the heat to transfer with the heat sink paste to the aluminum and spread out. And then what does heat do? Heat rises. So I got airflow going this way and up through this way, and it helps draw the heat away from it. Now if you want to do the maximum amount of cooling for your module, you could mount it between the radiator and the grill on this, if you can see my finger down here, on that support bracket, to where the air flows through it, past it, and then into the radiator. But they say try not to run the ignition control module too far away from the distributor and your coil. But as long as you use heavy gauge wire, I mean, this is like not overkill, but it's not under either. I can't remember what gauge I used, but it's... But anyway, not have had any problems. I've actually, and then you actually gap your points up to 0.045 instead of 0.035. I noticed a big difference with gas. It burns a lot better. Turn the key over, fires right up. The other thing I had a problem was with the old factory ignition control box. It would randomly shut off. I did everything that everybody says to do, check the grounds. I went and got a new factory MOPAR module. I even bought an orange one, the performance one. After a while, it started acting up. It would get hot, and then it would just be driving down the road, and it would just shut off. Yeah, that was a pain in the ass. So, that's about it. Stay tuned for another video where I'm going to show you how to keep the factory look with the ballast resistor and the MOPAR Electronic Ignition box, but really you're going to have the GM HEI 4-prong ignition control module hid out of sight. So like if you go to a car show and you want to win points towards a trophy, they get underneath here, they look, they go, oh, he's got a ballast resistor, he's got an MOPAR ignition control box. Okay. They don't check mark it off. I'll show you how to do that. And also, if anybody's looking for any odds and ends of MOPAR parts, I do have some manifolds, a couple sets of manifolds. If you're going to be putting a small block in a mid to late 60s A-body, I've got a whole bunch of odds and ends of slant 6 and small block gaskets. Just a lot of odds and ends. Contact me to see what I got. Any money I get off the parts will be going towards my Project Dart or the pickup, but mainly the Dart. I want to get that done. Or we can trade out. If you got a part that I'm looking for and I've got a part that you're looking for, we can do some bartering. Anyway, hope this helps, and talk to you later.